Watching a video about Albert Einstein, How I See the World, as a Nova show, and it occurred to me how the world produced Einstein. It could be said people grow out of the world, or it could be said the world produces people, a superstar. Just finished watching a TED Talk where a journalist from Sao Paulo, it seemed to me this guy is a genius. He's like almost like a savior type of person, but he's very humble. And I was blown away, and I thought he is sort of a product of the times. So to say time produces people, or the field, sort of a theory again, that people are, I hate to say produced one more time, but events conspire in a way. It's not necessarily intentional, and yet maybe there is something like that going on. I'm always struggling for words. But these two different ways of seeing things, that growing out of something or being produced by something. And of course it's both and neither and all of that stuff too. And with a product, number-wise, it can be factored. And so all these factors, they're not necessarily cause and effect. They're just whatever is multiplied goes into the product. With a growth, it might be chopped up into cause and effect and say, oh, this thing grew, so what were the causes, the causal factors, rather than the multiplicative factors. Well, different ways of viewing maybe give rise to different narratives, as some may say. I was watching a history show, the big history, something like that, on cable, and it occurred to me how conceptions of God change. That if it could be said there is a God that doesn't change, our conceptions of God certainly do change. Our meaning, we meaning people as a whole. I think the thought came out of a description of the horse, as the program went into horses being what people use. And the narrator said that the horse was designed in a certain way, and I thought, designed? Well, that kind of gives a intentional spin on how the horse grew. So my thoughts turned to, well, what other words might be used? Maybe the word pattern. A horse is of a certain pattern, but that's not such a great word either. To say the configuration of a horse, that doesn't do much. To say simply because of how the horse was, people were able to ride it, and so they started wearing pants, and everything changed after that. The rest is history. And then to think that the earth produced horses and the earth produced people, as if the earth was trying to launch people off of itself and into the stars to reproduce itself, or the life is trying to reproduce itself by collapsing into a seed pod form and then expanding out again frequently to some maximum body size or numbers of a population group. Those types of thoughts are interesting thoughts to me. It's tempting to think of time and space as physical things, or that through consciousness we might be able to create time or space, or the perception of time or space-time, as Einstein apparently did topologically or topographically. So all of these are conceptions of something, or conceptions of lots of things, and aside from the conceptions, it's tempting to think that the things exist, or some way, some Tao, or God, the universe, cosmos, some artifact of language. Beyond words, beyond language, there might still be activity of sorts. There might even be miraculous superpowers. Maybe a person could be in two places at once, everywhere at once. A person might be the self with a capital S. self-dividing as cells dividing, self-multiplying as Krishna perhaps, self-encapsulating, world-encapsulating, systematizing itself as a solar system, crashing planets and moons together with smashing success. Strange thoughts, to say the least. I'm still watching this Einstein show, and the idea of quanta. Einstein got his prize, first Nobel Prize for the photoelectric effect. The idea that there are these quantifiable amounts of energy, quantifiable amounts of force, quantifiable amounts of something or other, the points, the places where the wave collapses, discrete amounts, that the waves are only hopping and skipping and jumping digitally, incrementally, when seen through a certain kind of an experiment. And when seen through another kind of an experiment, the waves are waves, analog. So it could be said the experiment produces these things, or these things grow out of the experiment. These are a little bit more intentional than when people and horses are produced or grow out of a planet. I'm still watching this Einstein show, and I'm struck when I look back at my own life. They said Einstein went through Judaism at age 6 and practiced all these rituals, and then it was sort of like a phase that he went through. And he was not particularly a materialist. He went through that, if he ever went through that, didn't really buy into it, and was a pacifist, and all these different kinds of things that Einstein was, put me in mind of my own life and how I've gone through these phases of being sort of a sports fan, or looking at material things and seeing how shiny they are, and then passing through that phase and a non-material phase, and wanting to just sit and think and not have to do anything. Never really wanted to do anything, never wanted a job. Now here I am, having done my time, lots of time to sit and think and throw up words on YouTube. Pondering words, the meaning of words, how do words affect the way I think? Was thinking about language and how this Portuguese guy down in Sao Paulo that gave a talk about journalism, his English was exceptional. And I was thinking how he thinks in English, and how the brain, once it learns a language, is able to formulate thoughts in this language, and in one language a thought might not be able to be expressed in another language. And that's remarkable to me. Could there really be an unthinkable thought? Or is that kind of a thought unthinkable? To think God does or does not play dice with the universe. I might call that carving an uncarved block. And uncertainty is not necessarily some sort of a chance. It's merely an impossibility to determine various things at the same time. I can look at the front of my hand, I can look at the back of my hand. To think I can see them both at the same time would require some doing. I can think it, but to do it would be a different sort of a situation. I can see the face of the universe, but I can't see the back of my head. I can turn around real fast, and there's little chance that I'm going to be able to catch up with myself. If I'm sitting still, is time going by 1 second every second? Or is time standing still also? If I begin to move, time begins to slow. Was it going at the speed of light before I began to move? Is this really here nor there? That can be something to think about. That is a great word. Were it not for pronouns, nouns might have a lot more work to do. Language is busy. I'm not sure if I can pay language enough attention. What is the unit of attention that I can pay to something? Do these units add up to anything? If I pay something or give something my full attention, am I other than it? Or am I absorbed by it? Did Einstein produce these thoughts, or did these thoughts grow out of Einstein?